Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome here to the Launchpad and our live launch coverage of Rocket Lab's 53rd Electron mission. Kineis killed the Radio OT star, launching from Launch Complex 1A at the Māhia Peninsula in New Zealand, the first launch from that pad since July of 2022. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have so many of you tuning in from around the world. We got Michael watching in Texas. Craig says, hey, Space Ghost Zach, hello. We got Princess watching from Canada. We got Adrian in Bristol, UK. Jamie's in New Zealand, as well as Ian. We also have Wally tuning in from the Twilight Zone. Amy is in Michigan. Patty's in Massachusetts. We got David in Michigan. Helen's in Coventry in the UK, as well as so is Tim Salt. And we got Lone in Oregon. Glad to have so many of you tuning in with us as we count down the next 22 and a half minutes till the launch of the 53rd Electron mission, the 11th Electron of 2024. As we get started, take a moment, let me know that you can hear us all right. We're coming through. We're waiting for Rocket Lab to begin their live coverage. And once they do, of course, you'll see that on your screen here with that live view from New Zealand. Today's vehicle is the Electron rocket, which is everyone's favorite black vehicle that turns white prior to launch. Today's mission will not be a recoverable Electron, and it will be carrying the second batch of 5 satellites for the French Kinéis IoT constellation, which is designed to operate with 25 nanosatellites that weigh 30 kilograms each. This constellation will enable Kineis, a company backed by private and public investors, including the French government, agency of CNES, and CLS, an international space-based solutions provider for global IoT connectivity. Today is an instantaneous launch window of 7:01 p.m. Eastern Time, so we have our T0 running. We will sync that with Rocket Lab when they get their live coverage up with their T0 there, as there's always a little bit of delay on the cameras. We always try to estimate that to the best, but we'll sync it with their clocks once we have that live view. The next major moment in tonight's count will be when we get that final go, no-go to enter terminal count. We're expecting that at the T-minus 12-minute mark. So in the meantime, we're going to be answering your guys' comments and questions that you send in the chat as we continue to wait for those. We got people tuning in from all over the world. We got Krish is watching on a beach. Welcome. Tay is in Nebraska. Jacksonville Beach News is reporting in. Great to have you here. We got Gary in Georgia. We also have Chief Logan State Park, West Virginia via Starlink. Great to have you here, Gator, and awesome that you're connecting via Starlink. Are you on a V2, V3 Mini, or are you connecting to the Starlink constellation with? Box is watching from Melbourne, Australia. We got Timothy in Montgomery, Alabama. It's great to have so many of you tuning in from truly all over the world for today's live coverage. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. Here at the Launchpad, we bring you full live launch coverage, space news updates, and exclusive one-on-one interviews from CEOs and space companies around the world. We're getting ready to expand and launch our the Launchpad News division over the coming weeks, so make sure you stay tuned to that. And if you're interested in becoming part of the TLP crew, we do have our applications open. We'd love to have many of you join us, as we are looking for some more moderators, but we're also looking for producers, journalists, researchers, and rocket chasers that will be able to be around the world as we cover not only what's launching from here on the Space Coast, but from around the world. We're going to have a busy end of the year with some incredible launches coming up. We have the first flight of New Glenn, the 5th flight of Starship. We got Falcon Heavy with Europa Clipper, the 2nd and 3rd flights of Vulcan. Who knows what else we're going to see launch by the end of the year, and we'll be bringing you a full live coverage of all of that. Our Starbase 24/7 camera will be up again shortly, so make sure you stay tuned for that as activities down there get ready for SpaceX awaiting the FAA's approval to conduct that 5th flight test and the first ever catch attempt of a super heavy booster. L-minus 19 minutes, 5 seconds and counting. Rocket Lab should begin their commentary coverage here in the next few minutes. We do have an instantaneous window for today's launch, so if for any reason they were to have to delay, then we would be looking at another attempt tomorrow at the earliest. This launch was attempted. Some of you had joined us a few days ago where they attempted to launch this mission, and we even saw electron ignition. Rocket Lab did confirm that they had a GSE system that was not to the point of that it needed to be at that time of ignition, and they were going to they had to stand down, and they are back at it here again today. Over an hour ago, liquid oxygen began filling into Electron as they continued through the count for today's mission. Weather looking 70% go for launch at T0. So, of course, they're always monitoring that, but everything looking good for today's flight. Kirsch is asking, what are your thoughts on Neutron? I think it's awesome. I'm excited to see Neutron, see RocketLab scale up to their next size of vehicle, and who knows, Neutron might be what gets us to see people flying on board a RocketLab vehicle down the road as well. But I think Neutron's got some really interesting ideas on its version of reusability, and I think it'll be a great competitor to Falcon 9, and I think having more than one option to compete with Falcon 9 is a great thing. It helps keep pushing everything forward. Thanks for sending that in. Light Dreamer said, the rocket said, nope. Yeah, basically, the internal systems flagged it, and they said, not launching today. So they stood down a couple of days ago, and here we are back at it again. And we only got notice of this launch in the last about 18 hours. So a quick notice turnaround for today's flight as well. Ken saying, watching from Shohola, Pennsylvania, and the audio is great. Awesome. I appreciate that. Richie's asking, how do I apply? We'll drop a link in the chat there, exclamation point, not Apple, apply. Should pop up the application there. And then we'll be beginning to go through those again early next week. Also, make sure you join the Discord. That's where our community hangs out in between streams. And if we are reaching out to you for an application, you'll want to have that available as well. L minus 16 minutes, 35 seconds and counting. Continuing to await RocketLab to begin their live commentary coverage as we count down to launch here this afternoon. You guys can keep sending in your comments and questions in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. It is always an interesting thing to take a look at the RocketLab stock. RocketLab is a publicly traded company. It's currently sitting at $7.47 US. It increased 30 cents today, up 4.18%. It has dropped 1 penny after hours. It's been closed now coming up on 3 hours. And it's always interesting to watch how the RocketLab stock does around a launch. It's kind of a running joke that if they launch successfully, the stock goes down, the opposite of what you would normally expect. But hopeful to see that it will have a good flight here today, and we'll see how it improves their stock. Their stock definitely been on a journey over the last 3 months, being at its lowest of just under $5, $4.54, and now up to $7. So a pretty good increase there on the stocks for RocketLab, and there's a lot of them as well. There's been a lot of movement over the last few months. So interesting to see this kind of new era of space exploration at publicly traded space companies, where an abort to a launch can directly affect your stock, even if your rocket did exactly what it was supposed to do. You can take a moment, don't let us know what you have, but if you do have RocketLab stock, I'm always curious if anyone here is investing in it. It's always interesting to know how people feel about investing in these companies. Mark, where's the picture? It should be here soon. We're waiting on RocketLab. They normally begin their live coverage at the T-minus 20 minute mark, but they have not done so, and we are now just 2.5 minutes away from that go, no go of the flight here. So we are awaiting the live view and updates from Mission Control as we count down this instantaneous launch window here this afternoon. You guys can keep sending in your comments and questions in the chat, and you can see there they're beginning their intro video. So once they wrap that up and it's beautiful copywritten music, we will listen in to RocketLab Mission Control. But truly one of the most beautiful launch sites in the world. Launch Complex 1A and 1B at the Māhia Peninsula in New Zealand. We'll be continuing to answer your guys' comments and questions following the launch. Payload deployment will occur 1 hour, 6 minutes, 34 seconds into flight, and we'll be staying live during that time, so we hope that you'll stay with us and send those in. And if you haven't yet, though, take a moment, engage the like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us as we count down now just 13 minutes, 30 seconds and counting till liftoff of the 53rd Electron mission from New Zealand. If you haven't yet, take a moment, share out the stream, and let's listen in to Rocket Lab Mission Control.
For our Electron rocket is ready on the pad at Rocket Lab's Launch Complex 1 as we count down to its 11:01 a.m. local time liftoff for today's mission. On board Electron today is our return customer Kinéis as we prepare to launch the second of multiple launches for them to deploy their Internet of Things constellation to space. My name is Prachi Saknani, and with me is Andrew Haig, and together we are live from Mission Control Center in Auckland, New Zealand for our 53rd Electron launch.
Well, thanks, Prachi. It's great to be back on the pad with Electron again so quickly after we stood down from our launch attempt earlier this week. Now, a ground system sensor triggered Electron's flight computer to safely halt the mission right on T0 for that last attempt. But with Electron, the launch pad, and Kinéis' payload all healthy and ready for another launch attempt, we're back on the pad and ready to try again today with greens across the board so far for our pre-launch operations.
Coming up shortly will be the go, no-go poll run by our launch director to check with each of the operators that their system is prepared and ready to continue the countdown to liftoff. We have operators, as you can see, in our Range Control Center and in our Mission Control Center on your screen. The go, no-go poll is scheduled to start at T-minus 12 minutes, so only with a few seconds left on the clock. Let's listen in to the audio channels for the update.
All stations LD on mission, proceeding with the go, no-go sequence. Stage.
Stage is go.
Avionics.
Avionics is go.
GNC.
GNC is go.
VCon.
VCon is go.
T1.
T1 is go.
GC.
GC is go.
PLS.
PLS is go.
RSO.
RSO is go.
MET.
MET is go.
MM.
MM is go.
And LD sub.
LD sub is go.
Okay, the go, no-go sequence is complete. We are T-minus 11 minutes, 19 seconds, and counting. We are go for terminal count auto sequence at T-minus 10 minutes. From this time, the 3-word hold procedure is in effect.
So good news there from today's launch operators. We're cleared to move forward with the final pre-launch operations. Now, today's mission requires an instantaneous launch for the satellites in order for them to be in the correct orbital parameters for the constellation they're joining. And that T0 is set for 23:01 UTC, which is 11:01 a.m. local time for today's liftoff.
In just 10 minutes and 35 seconds, Electron will be sending the Kinéis Killed the RAID IoT Star mission to low Earth orbit for Kinéis, an international space-based solutions provider to improve global Internet of Things connectivity. This is our 53rd Electron launch overall, but our second for Kinéis this year, just 3 months after we launched them for the first time from Launch Complex 1. That mission launched our 50th Electron rocket, with the first 5 satellites of their new IoT constellation successfully deployed to their new home at 635 kilometers above Earth, just 66 minutes after liftoff.
I'll be launching 5 missions overall with 5 satellites on board each time. And each launch is tailored specifically to Kinéis' mission requirements. That includes instantaneous launch windows, like for today's mission, but also a precise payload deployment, first with a single satellite and then in pairs to build out the constellation exactly as Kinéis needs it. Now let's hear more from the team at Kinéis.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad and our live coverage of Kinéis 6 to 10, launching from Launch Complex 1A at the Māhia Peninsula in New Zealand. We now are counting down L-minus 9 minutes, 20 seconds, and counting Teams, of course, still monitoring weather conditions as usual, but we are 70% go for weather, and we did hear a go from Met. Met is the weather call out during that terminal count call. So weather is go at this time for liftoff in just 9 minutes from now. The final bit of propellant loading is underway from Launch Complex 1A onto Electron, where the vehicle is standing ready for liftoff. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us as we continue to count down to flight. We're going to keep their video up so you can see the video that they're playing, but has some beautiful copywritten music, so we're going to be answering some of your guys' comments and questions in the chat while we count down those final minutes of today's count. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us as we count down the last few minutes of the count here today. 5 satellites on board, each weighing 30 kilograms in size. This is the second of 5 dedicated missions with the Electron vehicle. Corey says, chat is go. That is good sign. We'll do that final go, no go with you guys in the chat in just a couple of minutes. If you're not a TLP member yet, consider hitting that join button. Just 99 cents a month gets you access to those custom TLP launch emotes. And we do have our RocketLab launch emotes as well. So you can definitely use those today if you are a TLP member there. Denise says, Zach, thanks for the great commentary as always. I appreciate that. Do the best we can just a little bit here while we await liftoff. We'll be answering more of your questions through the coast phase of today's mission ahead of payload deployment. That payload deployment scheduled for 1 hour, 6 minutes, 34 seconds into flight. We're going to have a long coast phase between the second stage separation of the kick stage and the kick stage igniting. But let's listen back into Mission Control.
To today's mission, we have 3 more dedicated launches to build out their constellation. We are proud to be supporting Kinéis with flexible, tailored, and direct access to orbit on Electron.
Now, speaking of Electron, with just 7 minutes left on the countdown clock, it's time to take you through a closer look at the rocket and mission profile for launch. Now, today's Electron rocket is our standard platform orbital launch vehicle capable of lifting up to 320 kilograms of payload to space. Electron stands at 18 meters or 59 feet tall and is primarily made with a carbon composite material, which is why our rocket looks black when it's not fueled. Now, Electron is the world's first carbon composite orbital rocket powered by the world's first 3D printed battery-powered rocket engines to make it to space. 9 of these Rutherford engines are located at the bottom of the rocket's first stage, and a single Rutherford engine with an expanded nozzle is used on the second stage. Now, all of the Rutherford engines across the rocket use batteries to power their turbopumps, and Electron performs a unique launch maneuver called a battery hot swap that happens part-way through the mission to replace the second stage engines' used-up batteries for new ones. Now, across the first and second stage, the engines use a propellant mix of kerosene and liquid oxygen, and it's that second propellant's super cold temperatures that make the outside of Electron look white, because that's where condensation has turned to ice. Now, without the propellants, Electron weighs in at just over 1,000 kilograms, but when the rocket is fully fueled, Electron weighs 13,000 kilograms.
At the top of the rocket within its fairing is where you'll find today's payloads of 5 satellites for Kinéis. As you can see, they're attached to the kick stage platform, from which they'll be deployed once they reach their destination. So, for today's mission, we are headed on a 643-kilometer orbit on a southern trajectory from Launch Complex 1. 2 seconds before T0, Electron's 9 Rutherford engines will ignite for liftoff, and the pad's hold-down mechanisms will be released, allowing Electron to travel upward for a short while before curving its path to continue its climb, but more horizontally. The rocket speed will continue to increase until it reaches max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure, just under 2 minutes from liftoff. Once it clears that first milestone, the next step in Electron's journey will be MECO. This main engine cutoff is when the first stage from the rocket shuts down and separates from the second, before the single Rutherford engine on stage 2 lights up to continue the mission to orbit. We'll have a repeat of that separation for stage 2 and the kick stage about 7 minutes later, and the kick stage will finish the mission by delivering Kinéis satellites to orbit. Once that's done, we'll also have the kick stage perform a perigee lowering burn that will help reduce these stages' orbital lifetime as part of our effort to keep space sustainable.
All right, so there's just 4 minutes 20 seconds remaining in the count to liftoff for Kinéis killed the RAID IoT star. At T-minus 2 minutes, Electron's flight computer will take over the countdown and autonomously run through its final operations. A liquid oxygen will continue to flow into Electron all the way up to T-minus 1 minute and 30 seconds.
That's right, and after that, we'll hear confirmation that Electron's first and second stages are fully pressurized and ready for launch. And then it's over to our launch director, Michael Pearson, for the iconic 10-second countdown. For now, let's send it to Mission Control so they can send it to space, and we'll check back in with you after liftoff.
And if you're just joining us, L-minus 3 minutes, 41 seconds and counting till flight of the 53rd Electron rocket and the first launch from Launch Complex 1A at RocketLab's Māhia Peninsula in New Zealand since July of 2022. This mission attempted to launch a few days ago, and we had an abort following engine ignition. So we're going to be watching closely here and hope things all go well in those final 3.5 minutes of the count and liftoff. Due to that, we are going to do our go, no-go a little bit earlier than normal. So let's see that go, no-go in the chat. If you're a TLP member, don't forget to use those custom TLP launch emotes. And at 3 minutes, 5 seconds and counting till launch, we're going to hand it over to Rocket Lab's Mission Control for the final 3 minutes of the count. And we'll be back with you during flight. Stay with us right here on the launch pad as you're watching live launch coverage of the launch of Kinéis 6-6-10 launching on Electron from New Zealand.
Auto sequence and confirm.
Auto sequence locked.
Confirm all expected primary flight computer ASGOs are green.
All ASGOs are green.
Okay, we are go for auto sequence start at T-minus 2 minutes. LD is go for launch.
The vehicle is fully on internal power, AFTS is green and enabled for flight.
LOX load is complete. System is in recirculation. Anti-geysering is disabled.
Stage 1 and Stage 2 tanks are pressed for flight. High flow engine purge enabled.
T-minus 20 seconds and counting. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
Stage 1 propulsion nominal.
T plus 35 seconds and counting, and we are well on our way to space. Our 53rd Electron rocket has taken flight, and it's headed to orbit with its payloads for Kinéis. Up next, you'll hear the call from Max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure, the point in flight where Electron experiences peak structural load. The GNC operator on console will give us the call that Max Q is approaching, and then we'll hear for confirmation that we have passed through that gate.
HVB discharge is nominal.
Cleared Max Q.
And there we have it. Confirmation Electron has passed through Max Q. We are now at 19 kilometers altitude and traveling over 2,700 kilometers an hour. And next up, we have 3 key events: main engine cutoff, or MECO, stage separation, and stage 2 engine ignition. MECO is when all 9 Rutherford engines shut down to prepare for the next phase in flight. And after those engines shut down, Electron's first and second stages separate. Then finally, the vacuum-optimized Rutherford engine on Electron's second stage ignites to propel the mission through to an elliptical transfer orbit. Those 3 events all take place in a quick succession over just a few seconds, so let's listen in for those calls.
"15 seconds to staging.
Entered burnout detect mode.
MECO confirmed.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage 2 ignition confirmed.
We are now T plus 2 minutes and 45 seconds into the mission, and as you've just heard, Electron has had a successful MECO, stage SEP, and second stage ignition.
Stage 2 guidance.
Telemetry data shows that Electron is now moving at over 8,200 kilometers per hour and has just passed 100 kilometers above Earth. Up next is fairing jettison, when Electron's nose cone, which is protecting our payloads today, will split in two and fall away. We might see this happen on screen, so let's keep an eye out for that.
Fairing jettison succeeded.
And that was the call out for fairing jettison from Mission Control, exposing the payload to space ahead of deployment.
Stage 2
Electron is traveling at over 8,500 kilometers an hour at an altitude of 125 kilometers, with just a few minutes remaining in the second stage burn.
Now, if you take a look at the graph on the right-hand side of your screen, then you can see Electron's current trajectory compared with our expected trajectory. And we like those 2 lines to be as close as possible, and that's what helps Electron's precise payload insertion accuracy.
HV discharge nominal.
Some of you may be wondering how IoT satellites impact your daily lives. These satellites connect devices globally, even in areas without regular internet. In day-to-day life, this means you can track deliveries worldwide and carry out credit card transactions, even if you're stranded in the middle of the South Island of New Zealand. They also support things like your smart home assistant or fitness watch, allowing them to stay connected anywhere for real-time updates or alerts.
Now, one of the things that sets Electron apart from many other rocket designs is the use of electric pumps in the Rutherford engines. And those pumps are powered by batteries, which deplete in power throughout the flight. Once we use up all the available energy in one set, we'll switch to a fresh battery to complete the mission all the way through to orbit. And that maneuver is referred to as the battery hot swap. Now, after the first set is depleted, Electron won't need those batteries for the remainder of the journey, so we jettison the depleted batteries to save mass in the final stages of flight. That's coming up soon, so keep an eye on your screen and see if you can see the shiny silver batteries eject and fall away.
HV discharge. Nominal approaching hot swap.
Throttling down. Battery jettison confirmed.
And that was the call for battery hot swap on the second stage, confirmed as successful by Mission
Hot swap
Control
successful.
across the nets. Up next is the final stage of Stage 2 flight, including SECO, or second engine cutoff, followed by kick stage separation. This is where the kick stage, carrying the 5 Kinéis satellites, separates from Electron's second stage. That final engine cutoff is coming up just shy of 9 minutes, so only about 3.5 minutes to go.
Stage 2
TSS
propulsion
safe.
holding nominal.
Now, electric pumps on Rutherford offer other advantages other than just a simplification of design. Now, these groundbreaking pumps can run the tanks all the way dry, allowing the second stage to squeeze every last bit of performance out of it during flight. And those pumps on Electron's second stage are currently powering us at speeds of over 19,000 kilometers an hour.
Some keen watchers from Flight 50 will remember some fun flips and rotations the kick stage performed during payload deployment for the last Kinéis mission. The kick stage's reaction control thrusters achieved this by expelling precise amounts of cold pressurized gas through small thrusters to rotate the kick stage and control its orientation and position in space. It's this system that's responsible for our industry-leading deployment precision.
It's now T plus 8 minutes 18 seconds, and we're fast approaching second engine cutoff. And just before that happens, the Rutherford engine will begin to throttle down in preparation for shutdown, which is scheduled to take place at around 9 minutes into the mission. So let's listen in and wait for that confirmation.
SECO confirmed. Stage 3 separation confirmed. Nominal transfer
Great news
orbit
there from
achieved.
Mission Control. The second stage engine has shut down and the kick stage has separated and is about to enter a coast phase for around 45 minutes. At the end of that coast, the Curie engine on the kick stage will ignite 2 times to complete some final positioning maneuvers. The first will circularize our orbit to 643 kilometers, and the second will slightly lower our perigee at the customer's request.
Now, around a minute after the completion of that final burn, the Kinéis satellites will be deployed in sequence. First, a single satellite will be deployed off the top of the kick stage, followed by the remaining 4 satellites deployed in pairs from opposing sides. Now, payload deployment is scheduled to take place just 55 minutes from now, so we're going to take a short break while the kick stage coasts around to the opposite side of the planet. We'll see you back here soon.
And if you're just joining us, you're looking at live tracking of Electron's kick stage, as it now is in a coast phase awaiting payload deployment, scheduled at T plus 1 hour, 6 minutes, 34 seconds. But we do have to get to the kick stage burn. That is set to begin at the 51 minute, 51 second mark of flight. That burn will last about 2.5 minutes. It'll then conduct another burn 10 minutes later, finalizing the deployment orbit of the Electron kick stage, and then we will get to see those flips and tricks of the kick stage to deploy the 5 Kinesis satellites. If you are going to head out, make sure you engage that subscribe button, though, so you never miss another live launch coverage. Taking a look at the launch calendar ahead, the next big mission that we'll have live coverage for is on Tuesday. We have a Starlink mission on Falcon 9 from Vandenberg, and then we are counting down to launch of Crew 9, half of Crew 9 to the International Space Station, currently targeting 2:05 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday from Space Launch Complex 40. This is a new one. Space Launch Complex 40. It's the first ever crewed flight from SpaceX's second pad. So we're excited to begin that countdown to launch coverage when we get a couple days closer to it. And of course, we are counting down to the launch of Starship, New Glenn, Vulcan, Falcon Heavy with Europa, Clipper, Soyuz, H2, H3, and so many more. You can stay up to date on the latest of launches over at tlpnetwork.com/launches. That's where our TLP launch calendar is. We're going to be answering your guys' comments and questions during this coast phase, so if you have those, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and I'll work on answering those live. Also take this time to head on over and check out the TLP shop. That's where you can get our Rocket Chaser's incredible prints and posters and metal prints, as well as some of our TLP launch gear. Katja, thank you so much for that super chat with the big heart. I appreciate that. Thank you for the support. Patty says thank you. I appreciate it. Catching up on the chat. Ross says, let's see 500 likes. Looks like we hit that. That is awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that support here. Scholar Moth says, that looks like the Helios control room from For All Mankind. Good taste. Great show. And Rocket Lab does definitely have one of the more unique mission control rooms. They've definitely done some styling to it. It's always great to see. You can keep sending in those comments and questions in the chat, and we'll continue on answering those live here, catching up on a few that came in. That came in during the liftoff there. Internet of Things is what IoT stands for. I saw a couple of people asking that. This is the second of 5 missions for Kineis. Why is their battery? Why do they drop the batteries, and what happens to them? It's a great question. Thanks for sending that in. So they drop the batteries because then they are releasing extra weight, which means the second stage and the kick stage will then perform more efficiently rather than carrying that dead battery weight. So that is why they have built that in. The batteries will fall back to Earth just for gravity and burn up in the atmosphere. So there won't be any more there. Amy says, shh, I haven't finished For All Mankind. It has been months. Spoilers are allowed now. Rex, I love retrograde launches. Yeah, we don't see them all that often, but we do see them with Electron out of New Zealand. If you did happen to be down in the New Zealand area and got photos or videos of today's mission, make sure you send us those over on social, TLPN_official on X, or the Launchpad Network on Facebook and Instagram. Scholar Moth, so it is a retrograde. What's the benefit of that profile? It all depends on exactly what the payload deployment was required, where they needed it to go, which direction, and all that. So that is all decided by the payload, and then if Electron is capable of providing it, which it is. So that is why they're going with that. Normally they would launch using the Earth's rotation with it to help with it, but going retrograde, they are actually going against the rotation, or with the rotation, excuse me, which means they don't get that extra little bit of boost. Shocks, what is the battery chemistry? I'm not sure we have that exact one there. Robert, why are there so many SpaceX Starlink launches? SpaceX needs to deploy up to 40 to 45,000 satellites to complete their first generation constellation. Now they've already rolled into doing their second generation, which is also around 40,000. They've only launched, I think, 6,000 or 7,000 in total, and we're probably approaching 1,000 on the second generation. The V2 minis. So they've still got like 39 to 40,000 to go, and they're only launching 20 at a time until Starship gets online. So that is why we have so many Starlink launches. We will have thousands more of them to go over the next few years. Stan, did they finally drop the idea of first stage saving? Nope, they just, not every mission allows them the ability to even attempt it, so they don't necessarily try on every mission. Thanks, Chaz, appreciate it. Miles High says, I live close to where they're building Canada's first spaceport in Nova Scotia. Super excited to see that for Canada. Hoping to get up there and see that first flight and see that launch complex when it comes online. You can keep sending in those questions in the chat by taking us at the launch pad. We'll answer those while we continue through the coast phase. T plus 16 minutes, 16 seconds. Awaiting that kick stage engine burn, 51 minutes into flight, and we'll be back with more commentary then, so stay with us right here on the Launchpad Network as we await payload deployment of Kinéis 6 to 10 from the Electron kick stage. Stay with us.
from being deployed to their final positions in space. The kick stage's Curie engine is performing 2 burns today, and while we were on our break, we've already had our first ignition and cutoff. This Curie burn lasted about 2.5 minutes to round out our orbit from its 643-kilometer apogee. We've mentioned Curie a few times this launch, and we've talked about our small but mighty engine prior to liftoff. But just how small is it? Well, check it out here.
Now, named after physicist Marie Curie, this extremely small engine is capable of some very big maneuvers. We've flown this engine on all but our first mission, and it allows us to raise and lower our orbits, perform plane changes on orbit, and it's responsible for our pinpoint payload deployment accuracy. Now, this version we have here is the Curie Mark III, and it's not just used on Electron's kick stage. This engine is used on a lot of our spacecraft missions as well. The Mark III engine used here is in the satellites that we're building for Varda's in-space pharmaceutical manufacturing, and we flew a variant of this engine to the moon back in 2022 as part of the capstone mission for NASA.
With only a few more milestones left in this mission, the second Curie burn comes next, lasting just 8 seconds. This is a slight orbit adjustment specific to our customer's mission before the deployment sequence begins. The satellites will deploy approximately 45 seconds apart, starting with the forwardmost satellite.
Curie ignition confirmed. Curie engine cutoff confirmed.
Great news there to have Curie engine shutdown confirmed by mission control for the kick stage. Now, up next is our last mission milestone, the payload deployment for the next 5 satellites for Kinéis' constellation. Each Kinéis satellite is a 16U platform weighing about 30 kilograms or 66 pounds. As we've mentioned already, the 5 satellites currently attached to the kick stage will be deployed in a particular order. We'll first deploy the top spacecraft as the first event, and then we deploy the next 2 satellites that are attached opposite to one another on the payload structure. And finally, we'll do the same thing again with the last 2 spacecraft. Between deployments, the kick stage does some neat gymnastics thanks to our reaction control thrusters, so keep an eye over on the animation for that.
And if you're just joining us, we are waiting for visual confirmation of those deployments set to begin just a minute from now. If it was your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad, and you're joining us for the ending of our live coverage of Kinéis 6 to 10. We've had the first payload deployment, standing by for the second and third, and then the fourth and fifth. They'll both deploy in pairs. Kick stage now beginning its first of 2 flip maneuvers here in preparation for deployment to make sure that those satellites get deployed exactly where they need to be on the right plane. Standing by for those deployments here of 7 and 8. There we go, 7 and 8 deployed, and standing by for 9 and 10. This is the second of 5 dedicated missions carrying 5 satellites on each for the Kinéis constellation for their new IoT system. Awaiting for that final deployment of 2 for satellites 9 and 10 into the constellation. Awaiting separation of those final 2 payloads here today. And there we have confirmation of deployment of 9 and 10 and a view inside mission control. With that, we are going to wrap up our live coverage of Kinéis 6-10 from RocketLab, the 53rd Electron mission, and the first launch from Launch Complex 1A, the Māhia Peninsula, since July of 2022. That's going to do it for us, though. If you haven't yet, make sure you engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage. Make sure you join us over on the TLP Discord, and if you're interested in joining the TLP crew to help us with our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, take a moment and fill out an application. But for our TLP Space Coast studio, my name's Zach, and we will see you next time right here on the Launchpad Network, because space is better together. Good night.